Not quiet laughter, but sharp, cruel amusement that echoed across the steel walls of Orbital Bastion 9. The human stepped down the ramp along. She carried one duffel bag and wore a simple dark uniform with no armor plates, no visible weapons, no ceremonial markings. Around her stood warriors from 12 species, towering Vraxians with scaled hides and crested skulls, 6-limbed Threx with bladed forearms, heavy armored Yekra whose mandibles could shear through alloy. They had all heard the rumors. The Coalition had approved a human for apex predator integration. The laughter grew louder. Commander Sareth of the Vraxian Warfleet leaned forward, his massive frame casting a long shadow over the newcomer. "You are the predator specialist?" he asked. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. The human looked up without flinching. "Lieutenant Mara Ionescu, reporting for duty," she said. Her tone was calm, steady, controlled. More laughter rolled through the chamber. Sareth bared his fangs in something that was not quite a smiliu. Small Mara adjusted the strap on her duffel bag. "Size is not the same as dominance," she replied. Threx officer clicked its mandibles. "You will not last a breath inside the containment." Baymara glanced toward the sealed blast doors at the end of the corridor. Behind those doors waited the creature that had torn through a pirate armada and survived orbital bombardment. Behind those doors waited Vorketh, apex predator 3 meters tall, at the shoulder layered muscle like braided cable, eyes that perceived beyond visible spectrum, claws that sliced starship hulls. 42 handlers, dead 0. Successful. Bonserith studied the human for a long moment. "You have one attempt," he said. "If it breaches containment, we purge the bay, including—" "You understood," Mara replied. The blast doors opened with a grinding roar. The containment chamber was vast, ringed with energy barriers and gravitic anchors. Its center lay Vorkethavon at rest. It radiated violence, dark armored hide ridged like volcanic stone. A heavy tail coiled beside its body. Each breath expanded its chest with frightening power. 6 eyes opened in perfect unison. A low growl rolled outward, vibrating through bone and steel. Several officers stepped back. Mara did not. She walked forward until she stood before the outer barrier. "Disable the first field," she said. The control officers hesitated. Sareth gave a single nod. The barrier flickered out. The growl deep in Mara set down her bag and knelt slowly. No sudden movements, no challenge. She opened the duffel and removed a small sealed container from it. She took a strip of cured meat. The watching officers exchanged confused looks. Keth rose to its full height. It was larger than any projection had conveyed. Its shadow swallowed her whole lifted the meat in her open palm. "Mizi," she said softly. The word meant nothing in its language, but tone carried across species. "Vu." Keth stepped forward until it stood inches from the inner barrier. Its claws flexed energy readings. Spiked weapons systems hummed to life around the chamber. Mara held her ground. She tossed the meat through the phased transfer slot. "VOA." Keth snapped it from the air without looking away from her. Silence followed. Mara remained kneeling. She lowered her gaze slightly, not in fear but in acknowledgement. Vorketh tilted its massive head. Its nostrils flared. Its growl softened into something lower, almost questioning. Mara reached into her bag again. This time she removed a collar. Not chains, not restraints, a thick band lined with neural translators and biofeedback sensors. A Threx officer made a harsh clicking sound. "We'll tear you apart." Mara stood slowly. "Disabled the inner barrier," she said. Sareth hesitated for the first time. Then he signaled compliance. The barrier dissolved for 1 heartbeat. Nothing moved. Then Vorketh lunge gasps erupted across the observation deck. Mara did not run at the last instant. She shifted her stance and lowered her shoulders, turning her body sideways. Not a threat, not prey. Presence. VOR. Keth skidded to a halt so close that the heat of its breath washed over her face. One massive claw rose it, could enter in less than a second. Mara extended her hand and placed it against the armored hide of its chest. Her palm barely covered a fraction of the surface. "You do not need to fight," she whispered. The claw hovered. The 6 eyes studied her behind her. She could sense dozens of targeting systems locking in place. She ignored them. "You are alone," she said quietly through the translator collar, still inactive. She felt nothing yet, but she saw something shift in those 6 eyes. Flicker memory, perhaps Bane, perhaps slowly. The raised claw lowered. A stunned silence filled the chamber. Mara lifted the collar truss. She murmured. Vorketh tensed once more. Muscles rippled. Then slowly, impossibly, it lowered its massive head. Mara fastened the collar around its neck. The device activated. A surge of sensation crashed into her mind. Dredge, hunger, loss, flashes of a burning sky, others of its kind falling beneath orbital fire. The sensation of nets of gravity crushing bone, isolation. Mara staggered, but did not let go. "No," she whispered. The mages continued to pulse across the Lincolnham pane. Alone, her throat tightened. "Not enemy," she sent back through focused thought. "Partner," the word echoed faintly across the neural bridge. "Partner." Vor. Keth's breathing slowed. The tension in its muscles eased. It lowered its body until it rested beside her. Not submissive. Epistaros stepped closer to the containment threshold. As it controlled, he asked. Mara looked up. Vorketh turned its 6 eyes toward the Varaxian commander. A deep rumble vibrated through its chest. Mara placed her hand against its neck. "Stand down," she said. The rumble faded. The massive head dipped slightly. Shock rippled across every watching face. "How?" "Sereth," demanded. Mara let out a slow breath. "On my world," she said, "we learned long ago that the most dangerous predators are not defeated by force alone. We observed, then we understood them. We offered them place instead of Sereth narrowed his eyes. "Slaughtered an armada because it was attacked," Mara replied. The words hung heavy in the air. Keth's thoughts brushed hers again. "Fight, Mara, not Adias. We will fight, but we choose." When she stepped forward and pointed toward a reinforced wall at the far end of the chamber. Vorketh target. The creature rose smoothly. Power coiled through its frame. Fear. Concentrated blast of plasma erupted from its jaws. The reinforced wall disintegrated in a controlled explosion. Alarms screamed. Smoke and debris filled the far side of the basis. Mara commanded instantly. The creature stopped. Energy levels dropped. Silence returned except for drifting debris. Every officer understood what they had witnessed. Not Damnation. Cordiation. Shan slowly bowed his crested head. "Lieutenant Ionescu," he said carefully, "it appears the apex predator takes your orders." Mara shook her head. "No," she replied. "Chooses to stand with me." Vior. Keth lowered its head until it rested beside her shoulder. Gesture no handler had ever survived. Long enough to see the laughter from earlier felt distant and foolish across. The fleet whispers would spread about the small human who walked unarmed into a cage. About the monster that did not kill her. About the moment power shifted in a way none of them expected. Humanity had never been the strongest species, never the largest, never the most physically imposing, but on a distant blue world they had faced wolves, bears, great cats, creatures built for killing, and instead of wiping them out, they had built bonds. They had turned fangs into guardians' claws, into companions. Now, in a galaxy ruled by plasma and conquest, the same lesson echoed. Most terrifying force was not the beast that could tear through steel. It was the mind that could reach into rage and offer belongings. Straightened to his full height. "Prepare integration protocols," he ordered. The Coalition will deploy them together. Mara placed her hand against Vorketh's armored Hydrady. She asked softly through the neural link. Came a steady answer, partner. The blast doors opened once more this time. No one laughed us. They walked from the chamber. The massive predator moved at her side, not chained, not forced, and every warrior who watched understood a new truth. When the next war came, the galaxy would not fear the creature alone. They would fear the human who had taught the apex predator to choose her command. Asterisk.